Practitioners and players of this craft, welcome back to this thing of ours. I'm your host, Neil K. Marcellus, and of course, this is the Chronicles of Gameology. Now, that's checkmate. To get at the heart of the issue surrounding the topic for this episode, one must have a thorough understanding of this axiom or this pearl of wisdom commonly expressed within the study halls of this philosophy widely known as the concept of game. And this pearl of wisdom is the fact that a man is born 3 times. 1, he is born of his mother. 2, he is born of his father. And finally, he is born based upon the quality of him attaining knowledge of self. And why this pearl of wisdom I just shared with you is so critical in getting at the heart of why there is a craving within men to be dominated by an assertive woman is the fact that in order for a man to accomplish this third birth, which grants him knowledge of self, but in order for him to pull off and accomplish this third task, securing his graduation from those first 2 births, making up this pearl of wisdom I just shared with you. But this third task, which is the attainment of the knowledge of self, then a portion of his education on attaining this exalted and lofty position pivots around the quality and wisdom he has garnered from interacting with these 6 kinds of feminine types or personas depicted on this new image I'm currently showing you now. You see, a man from the time he is born up until the time he moves on from this physical plane is consistently interacting with one or several of these 6 feminine personalities in many scenarios and happenings throughout his entire existence. Therefore, the quality of a man's wisdom and experience he has garnered from the interactions and discoveries made in his socializing and in contact with these 6 feminine personalities, this insight and education determines the severity of the neurotic psychosis that, when not properly dealt with, can fester and ferment and cause a man to crave and at times dramatically seek out to be dominated and manhandled, so to speak, by an assertive woman. Having said that, let me in a sense blow the lid off and dive deeper into this neurotic psychosis lurking and laying low deep within a man's emotional makeup, doubling back to that pearl of wisdom, primarily to the part where it mentioned the delivery of knowledge of self, predicated, I might add, on the tenacity of a man having a forward-leaning and a bullish mindset. But one of the crucial requirements on attaining knowledge of self and an authentic application of this philosophy referred to as the concept of game is to decode the triangle of disempowerment and to construct one's own narrative and story, particularly one's own myth. I did an entire show surrounding this concept. Here's the link. Check it out once you get finished viewing this particular show. Nevertheless, on decoding myths and old wives' tales that a man is steadily subjected to help bring him into compliance with the status quo, ever since he parachutes through his mother's womb onto this physical plane. It is mandatory for a practitioner of this craft to decode and deconstruct all myths and all wise tales. So one of these myths and old wise tales I want to bring to your undivided attention that will shed greater light and give you greater clarity on this neurotic psychosis, this emotional turbulence that can lead a man down the rabbit hole, craving to be dominated and subjugated by an assertive and dictatorial type of female. At the same time, I need to emphasize that there's nothing wrong with an assertive woman. But what I'm speaking of here is when a man relinquishes total authority over to a dictatorial and overly bossy kind of woman. But back to this myth and old wives' tale that will shine some light on this infliction referred to as a neurotic psychosis. This myth is none other than the mythos surrounding the concept of Poseidon, one of the 12 Olympians dealing with the mythology encompassing the legends and saga of the Greek gods and their story. But FYI, these 12 Olympians and their origins come from an older and more ancient mythology referred to as the ancient African mystery systems. Here's 2 books you need to add to your collection that will definitely reinforce what I just stated. These deep-rooted in ancient African mystery systems, they are the precursor and forerunner that gave birth to the Greek and Hellenistic folklore and mythologies that became the backbone and foundation of what we refer to as the Western civilization today. As it is, these particular mythologies, the Poseidon mythos, it describes some powerful and outstanding attributes that is embedded within all men. But like everything else, these attributes, they must be cultivated. So when these formidable attributes are not properly polished and educated, they can disintegrate into this neurotic psychosis that leads a man down this rabbit hole where he thirsts and craves to be dominated and mentally manhandled by a assertive and overbearing kind of woman. The evidence to this psychosis is encoded into this mythology of Poseidon, where it refers to him exclusively as the progenitor of tidal waves and earthquakes. As for the tidal wave and its symbology, it points to the preponderance of a man who has no knowledge of self and of course no concept of game, to be overly reactionary when it comes to incidents and occurrences consistently taking place upon this chessboard we call life. And being overly reactionary, men who fits this type of bill will allow the floodgates of grief and sometimes rage to swarm in and overtake them. And this can lead to this neurotic psychosis that positions a man to be a candidate who is willing and able to allow himself to be manhandled mentally by an assertive and overbearing kind of woman. In consideration of what I just stated, let me now divulge and peel back this onion even further as to why this energy of Poseidon, which is, by the way, embedded within all men. Some men have a greater percentage which is active versus some men who have a lesser percentage of this energy which is dormant. And this is based upon 7 aspects of one's environment, which is a topic for another show. Nonetheless, getting back to divulging the essence of this Poseidon energy and how it can be more thoroughly understood and conceptualized, the Poseidon mode of energy can be equated to a man's libido, his sexual appetite towards women. So, peep game. The turbulence and the ruckus associated with water and the vastness of the ocean and the Poseidon energy is in all actuality the vitality related to the sexual fervor that a man undergoes when interacting sexually with the ladies. Check out this image that I'm currently showing you. You see, this turbulence, this sexual fervor takes place when the sperm and its tail begin to vibrate strongly. The tail of a man's sperm has the capacity to vibrate at over 2,000 times per second. Now, just imagine a man moving towards attaining knowledge of self can produce the quantity up to about 200 to 500 million amounts of sperm. This is the essence of this Poseidon energy I've been speaking about. But also the Romans, they refer to this mythos as Neptune. And Neptune was also referred to as the master of the 7 seas. Consequently, in achieving knowledge of self and a thorough understanding and application of this street philosophy referred to as the concept of game, A man needs to tap into his sexual experience he has accumulated with the ladies he has interacted with and redirect this into the 7 levels of his sexual power. Check out this brand new image that I'm currently showing you. When a man becomes stagnated and fixated between level 1 and 2 from on this image, this is when this neurotic psychosis I've been speaking about has a tendency to make itself known. Harping back to the lessons and conversations I have had with numerous seasoned OGs who was instrumental in my development, it was one in my early 20s that gave me the lessons that I'm sharing with you now. And he said to me, Neo, it is the responsibility of all men to self-initiate. Because when maneuvering across this chessboard we call life, it is 2 individuals that you will consistently run into. These 2 individuals fall into the category that they will be either at the game or in the game. While I was still recovering from that bombshell of a revelation that he just laid on me, he further said, from the truckload of perks that comes along with being an active participant in this philosophy referred to as the concept of game, he emphasized that along with these many perks that comes along with being an active participant, one learns how to distinguish from information that is highly speculative versus information that is thoroughly practical and highly pragmatic. So, in mastering this Poseidon energy, it comes down to understanding how to apply mind over circumstances, ways of maneuvering across this chessboard we call life. So, peep game. This energy, like all energies, falls under the first law of thermodynamics, and it states energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but rather only transformed or transferred from one form to another. For this reason, and also being an active participant of this philosophy, one gains insight that since energy is constant and also can be changed and controlled based upon this undisputable principle known as the first law of thermodynamics, then one has the ability to move and manage one's own energy in a more productive and less negative direction. This methodology of mind over circumstances that falls up under a greater and much larger ideology, which is the discipline known as the concept of game, also can be referred to as knowledge of self. But let me now take aim and unpack this methodology used to harness and master this Poseidon energy that we've been discussing, and also illustrate how broad and deep the concept of game truly is, versus how the square segment of society has co-opted and mangled the term to some pickup artists and some corny dating parlor tricks. Check out this fresh image I'm currently showing you now. Within the discipline and philosophy of gameology, as you already know, I utilize the chessboard and the chess pieces to explore and disclose life's greater and more deepest mysteries. So the chessboard, which I refer to as the chessboard of life, encompasses this term circumstances where we execute all of our actions and opportunities. So the chessboard in this term circumstances is used as a playing field where all opportunities, both productive and unproductive, gets implemented and put into action. And it can be conceptualized as 4 dimensions, which is 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, as this image indicates. These 3 dimensions symbolizes and is depicted on this image as the number 1, 2, and 3 in red, signifying 3 different pockets of the social dynamic that we are consistently engaging in. And the 2 funnels on this same image in purple, they represent the concept of time and signifies the 6 kinds of choices that determines how we maneuver and take advantage of the opportunities presented to us on the chessboard of life. But to do this subject justice, it would take many other episodes, which is beyond the scope of this particular show. And of course, I will be doing more podcasts breaking down this concept, because this concept is very broad and very deep. But let's get back to unpacking this methodology used to harness and manage this Poseidon energy we've been discussing. Utilizing this methodology, which is the concept of mind over circumstance and the first law of thermodynamics, this comes down to comprehending the concept of cause and effect. Check out this brand new image I'm currently showing you now. Cause and effect, which is used to harness and master this Poseidon energy we've been discussing, begins with a man's mental state. It works like this. First, his mental state, then his feelings, which, by the way, is one of the most misunderstood concepts in society, and a man's success or failure pivots around how properly he can implement this principle, his feelings. But finally, then comes physical manifestation of what a man is truly aiming for. And since a lot of men these days, mental states is of a fleeting nature and is often unstable because of a lack of gain, then this results in an unproductive material impact upon and within the concept of space and time, or the chessboard of life, or a man's circumstances. Now, once again, peep game. When a man's mental state finds no synergy in his feelings apparatus, then his intended outcome will merely skim the surface of this four-dimensional chessboard, where physical outcomes are materialized and made to be brought into fruition. Therefore, as a consequence, when a man has discrepancies and turbulence in this process of cause and effect, then he will be more wide open to be manhandled mentally and taken advantage of by the assertive and overbearing kind of female. Finally, to conclude, when a man starts his journey into the vastness of knowledge of self, he owes a debt and a payment to that journey. But once he becomes front sight focused and dedicated, then the journey owes him. Now, that's checkmate. Thanks for watching. We'll definitely catch you on the next episode.